Good. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name's Christy. I work with Mill and Feed. I'm on the wholesale side. I've been with the company for about 5.5 years now. This presentation is open-ended, so this is a two-way conversation between me and you guys. So I know this is a not conventional like when we used to meet in the classroom and everything, but if you have any comments or if you have any questions, please feel free to type them out in the chat. I will have the chat box up, so I will see them as they come in, and I will either answer the questions or mention their comments. But as the topic says, we're going to go over the winter care of chickens. Just so you know my background, I was born and raised on a family farm in Kentucky. We did beef cattle. We didn't do chickens. My friends had chickens. I didn't. Really didn't get into chickens until I got into high school and college, where I had to take courses on them. High school, I was involved in the FFA all 4 years of my high school career. And then because of the love of farming that my grandfather instilled in me, and because of FFA, I chose to go into ag education and agribusiness. And so I went to Eastern Kentucky University, and I graduated with 2 bachelor's degrees, one in ag education and one in agribusiness. After I graduated, I moved to Alaska and eventually made my way to Mill and Feed, where I still work. So let's get started. Today, we're going to go over some cold weather tolerant birds, winter feeding tips, sheltering, lighting for winter laying hens, cold weather healthcare considerations, and we'll go over chicken behavior 101. On the screen, you'll see a bunch of cold weather tolerant birds that were bred and made for cold weather. In all honesty, any bird can be made cold weather tolerant. All you have to do is prep them for it. So now is the time to start kicking your birds out of the coop where it's nice and warm, and make them hang out outside all day. Just make sure that they have protection against predators like hawks, eagles, other birds, foxes, bears. So just make sure they have protection against predators, but kick them out, make them hang outside during the day. At night, let them go back in and sleep in the coop where it's warm. But then just next day, kick them back out, and they will learn to be cold weather tolerant. Once the snow starts flying, still continue to kick them out. Birds can move around in the snow. Once subarctic temperatures move in, so 25 degrees or less, that's when you should start keeping them in the coop and stuff a little bit more. But a lot of people just keep the doors open and let their birds go in and out. But at nighttime, they'll lock them up and keep their birds locked up at night so that they will stay warm at night. So in winter feeding tips, feeding during the winter time depends on what feed you're feeding. So they need more energy, less protein. So most of your feed, your energies are coming from your carbohydrates. So that's where corn comes into play. So that's where they derive most of their energy from. So that's why corn is popular in chicken feed. Feed, how much they're eating also depends on type of year, temperature, age, size, weight. How much are they laying a day? All that affects how much they're going to eat. But as winter comes, they should be eating more. And a chicken body operates when it's between 70 and 75 degrees. That's what best temperatures that it operates at. But birds will operate throughout the winter. So just continue to feed your birds and provide some warm areas for them to go. Commercial feeds are formulated, so make sure that they're based on age. So make sure you're feeding the right type of feed. If you started your chicks back in April, you should be on to either pullet grower or even onto layer feed based on their age and when you started. Most birds at this time should be on layer feed, hopefully in Alaska. Different ingredients provide different aspects. Barley is harder to digest, so that's why we use a lot of corn in our feed. Fish meal can leave a residue taste on in your eggs. Kelp is a natural source of vitamins, and birds love the taste of it. Your carbs, like I said, are mainly corn, but we also use wheat. And just make sure you're on the appropriate age feeding once again. Continued, once we get into these colder months, it's always good to jumpstart a chicken's body. So in first thing in the morning, provide a little bit of scratch, and that's going to start the provide enough energy in the bird to start creating heat and warmth for the bird. You can provide mash, which mash you can eat scratch or crack corn and mix in hot water or milk and create an oatmeal consistency feed. And birds love it. On the wholesale side, we have a customer that loves to feed actual oatmeal to their birds, and their birds absolutely love it. Once again, it's as long as it's warm, it's a great way to get your birds started in the morning, and also great to feed at nighttime to help them continue to burn energy throughout the night and help themselves stay warm. So different types of feed I've already touched on. The mash, it is oatmeal consistency. You can use scratch, you can use cracked corn, you can use different types of grains to make mixed in with warm water or warm milk in order to make it. Birds love it. If it gets on their beaks, they'll go around and eat it off another bird's beak. Definitely love it. Pellets and crumbles. That's if you purchase our feeds, you'll either be buying pellets or crumbles. Pellets are the elongated pellets that you feed. It's everything wrapped in one. It's your feed plus your vitamins plus your minerals. Everything that your bird needs is complete. It's balanced. If you're feeding our pellets or crumbles, then you do not need to be adding any oyster shell to your birds because it's already in those pellets and crumbles. What the birds needs is already in there. And the crumbles, it's just the broken up pieces of the pellets. Normally the younger birds like them. It's preference is 50-50. I've heard some customers say that their birds like the crumbles better. I've heard others say they like the pellets and that there's less waste with it. It's all personal preference at that point. Scratch is usually cracked corn and another type of carb like wheat or oats. Here at the mill, we use red wheat and cracked corn. It's high in protein, and it is a great energy source for birds. The problem with it is it's like candy to a kid. It is addictive to a bird. So it should only be used sparingly. It should be a treat or just used as first thing in the morning and last thing at night to create energy to get your bird systems jump started. Grit, it's just sand or small pebbles that stay in the gizzard and help grind up grains and plant fiber so it's more digestible for birds. It's not necessary when you're feeding complete diet like our mill and feeds pellets and crumbles is, but a lot of people who allow their birds to free range, it is necessary for your birds to have some type of grit in their diets. Is calcium necessary? Once again, if you are feeding a complete diet like mill and feeds diets are, then no, you don't. However, if you have a bird that is an aggressive layer, like she's laying 2 eggs a day, or she goes every single day without a day off, then you might want to put some calcium out for your birds. Most important things is that not to give them to chicks because you can form leg deformities. So you want to make sure that they're laying eggs. So at the pullet stages, when you're introducing calcium into their system, if you do get an aggressive layer and she's not getting adequate calcium, she's going to start pulling calcium from her body, from her bones, and she's going to become very weak. She might not be able to walk and support her system, support her skeletal system, and it could lead to death. There's also people are putting too much calcium out, so they're getting chalky eggs. So there is a flip side to that. So just if you're starting to see chalky eggs, don't add a supplement. Just keep feeding your feed, the mill and feed, because it is complete. A great option normally would be oyster shell, but there is a shortage nationwide on oyster shell. We don't know when that's going to end, unfortunately. We have brought in at the mill poultry limestone, which is just as good as oyster shell. It's high in calcium and it's just comparative to oyster shell. So we do have sources of calcium besides oyster shell if you do need some calcium for your birds. Sprouts and fodder for supplemental feeding. It is a great way to provide year-round fresh greens. It provides minerals and vitamins and protein to your birds. It's also a great way to get your kids involved with the chickens. And we have some handouts at the retail store. If you're interested, swing by and pick up one of the handouts. Best thing to do is get some whole grains. We have some Athabasca oats, some Ara barley. You could do alfalfa or wheat even. And just get a tray and start growing them in there. And sprouts, so when they get about 4 inches, you cut them and feed them to your birds. And before you don't start over right at when you harvest, you can go ahead and start a week later after you plant your first ones, you can start another tray so that you're continually in sprouts at all times. So you always have something fresh and green to give to your chickens year round. It's also great as an enrichment for your birds as well, to keep them from being bored. Growing up, my grandfather had one of those old washboards where we would take the cabbage and he would replace put a blade in there and would cut the cabbage up. And we would pack jars with cabbage and then we would take it out into the woods and we would wait a few weeks until it became sauerkraut. And that's called fermenting. And fermenting is becoming very popular again. And it's a great way to, once again, take your whole grains and put in a jar, fill it with water, just up right above, barely above the seeds and stuff, and ferment your seeds and stuff. And it increases your vitamins and makes food more digestible, and birds love it. The most important thing is that if it smells bad, don't feed it. If you see mold growing, don't feed it. It should smell fruity and tart like yogurt. But main important thing, don't feed it if it doesn't smell good, if it smells like alcohol or yeast, or if you see mold, because then you're introducing bad microbes to your bird's digestive system. Flock blocks, it's a supplemental feeding. Great if you want to go on vacation. You know, most people say once you're a farmer, you never get a day off. Mainly true, but as a chicken farmer, you can put a flock block out. A 25-pound flock block feeds up to 25 birds for 2 to 3 days. It's got whole grains, it's got molasses, and your birds will just sit there and peck at it. The other great thing about flock blocks is it's a great enrichment. So if you got bored birds that need something to do, just put one of these out there and they will peck at it. Diatomaceous earth. A lot of people think that this causes respiratory problems in birds. It's more of a respiratory problem in humans than in birds. It's not harmful to them. It's great for dust baths. It also dries out cage floor waste and reducing fly populations, especially lice. So if you have a problem with lice in your house, in your coop, put this out for your birds to roll in. It's also great at preventing lice from getting into your coop. The compost method. So where you just turn your waste over and you allow it to break down and create heat in your coop. And people only have to gut their houses about 2-3 times a year. By doing this method, they use diatomaceous earth in order to keep the smell down. But this also provides trace minerals that results in better feathering and egg production. So birds not only will bathe in it, but they'll also peck at it as well. A lot of good usage for diatomaceous earth. Treats. Once again, a bored bird is a bad bird, so keep them enriched. We have our own line of chicken treats. We just came out with the porridge party mix, which has whole corn, whole dried black soldier fly larvae in it. Basically, they're grubs. Our birds love grubs. The same thing with the happy hen treats. They're mainly grubs. And then we also at the retail store carry scratch and peck. So great sources of treats to keep your birds happy and keep them entertained. A lot of people like to let, especially when they're free ranging, will let their birds into the garden, or sometimes in the wintertime, they'll turn their greenhouses into the coop for the birds. Just need to be careful because some feeds are poisonous to chickens. Cherries and peaches, the pits of those, avocados, onions, tomato plants, coffee, because when I was growing up, we kept a old country crock tub beside the sink, and we put all of our waste in there, like the eggshells and the coffee grinds and the potato peels and everything like that. So we would take that out to the garden and throw it out in the garden so it would compost. So that would not be very safe for your birds to get into. So also check and make sure that your birds can't get into your compost piles, or that you're not composting anything that could be poisonous to your birds. Water is very, very, very important to a chicken. Body contains more than 50% water, and an egg is 65% water, so very important. Egg production will maintain if birds have plenty of warm water to drink, and picky birds like to have their water between 50 and 55 degrees. The amount of water that a bird needs increases, one, as they get older, and two, depending on what they do. So your layers are going to need more water than your broilers are. And the older they get, they're going to need more water as compared to your chicks. So make sure that you provide plenty of water every day for how many birds you have. Birds like to drink mainly at dawn and dusk. And so in wintertime, we recommend doing the 2 bucket method. So you first thing in the morning, go out, feed your birds and leave that bowl out there with them throughout the day. And at nighttime, you have a second bucket in the house. You go out and fill that bucket up, go out, put that bucket in the coop for nighttime when it's time for them to go to bed. And you bring in the one that you put out that morning, bring it in, clean it, and get it prepared for the next morning. And you keep rotating through these buckets. We sell all kinds of options. There's hanging buckets, there's galvanized buckets or galvanized waters. We have the heated bases. We even have a heated poultry water fountain for wintertime. So a lot of different options that if you need some options for this winter, you come on down to the mill and our staff can help you out with picking the right one that you'll need. But like I said, water is very important, and we'll look at a chart later on in the presentation that shows how much water you're really going to need per bird. Sheltering methods. Free range is pretty popular movement going across the US. That's where you just no confinement. You just let your birds out and let them eat. Problem with that is that predators, bears, hawks, owls, eagles, your neighbor's dog, lot of predators, especially here in Anchorage. Rural areas, there's still quite a few predators, but you don't often see them as much. The most popular one here in Anchorage is yarding. That's where you have a permanent building with an outdoor fenced yard. Make sure you're always protecting from the sky, from the grounds. Foxes can dig, ermine can fit through holes in the fence. Just always be conscientious of who your predators are. And a lot of different options for housing. So must-have shelter features. Must provide adequate space for the number of birds you have. Needs to be well ventilated and draft free. It needs to, throughout the winter, maintain a comfortable temperature. Protect from wind and sun, protect from your predators. Bedding needs to be 3 to 5 inches deep. We do not recommend cedar because it could lead to respiratory problems and death of birds. One of the most popular bedding right now is hemp. Hemp has less dust and it's quite a bit more expensive, but it goes a lot farther for your money. Make sure you're disinfecting with 1 to 2 bleach to water dilution. When you're building your coop, make sure you have a good plan and that it's easy to clean and you don't have to do a lot of it's not going to take a long time for you to clean, and you're not going to have to wait a long time for it to dry before you can put more bedding down and bring your birds back in. All right, here's the chart that I was talking about that let's go over water and how much water you would need. So for chicks, layers, and broilers, so 0 to 8 weeks, they need 1/4 less per 10 birds. As they produce 2 pullets, it increases 1 to 2 gallons. And then your laying hens, you need 2 to 3 gallons. And broilers, after 8 weeks of age, it also goes up to 2 to 3 gallons per 10 birds. Your minimum floor space also increases as your bird gets bigger. Your feeder space, the same. You need more space. One of the things to notice here is lighting. As we go into winter, you're going to need to substitute with lighting for your layers. If not, you will more likely see a decrease in egg production. So chicks, they need 21 to 23 hours of lighting. Then you can drop it down to 15 to 16 hours by 3 weeks of age as pullets. You don't want it to drop down to under 12 hours, but those laying hens, you want to keep 15 to 17 hours of light a day. We're soon, we get below 8 hours a day of daylight. We go to work, it's dark. We come home, it's dark. So you need to have a plan on how you're going to supplement lighting for your birds to continue to keep them laying. Christmas light timers are going to be your best friends, and you don't need to be elaborate with your scheme on what hours are going to be light, what hours are going to be dark. Have your lights turn on when you wake up in the morning and have them turn off when you go to bed at night. Your birds should be on the same schedule as you. You shouldn't be on the same schedule as your birds. So make your birds easy for you. Here on this screen, you will see a sample of a adequate coop for 8 full-size chickens or 12 bantams. You will want 1 nest box for every 4 hens. You should have your 3 to 5 inches of shavings covering the floor. You can see that they're using roost. One thing I want to talk about with for your birds to roost at night, we recommend not using dowel rods, because your birds, when they're clenching onto the dowel rods, they cannot bring their breast feathers up and over their feet. So it leaves their feet exposed to the elements, and that can lead to some frostbite onto their feet. So you want to provide like a 1x4 so that they can firmly plant their feet and bring those breast feathers up and over their feet and cover them and keep them nice and warm throughout the night. Okay. Temperature control. I just moved into a new place, and let me tell you, the humidity in this place is through the roof, and it causes it to be cold in our house. So the same thing is going to happen in your chicken coop. If you don't control the humidity inside your house, it's going to be cold to your birds, and they're not going to be able to stay warm. So make sure it's well ventilated, it's draft free. Make sure that you're getting shade from trees, or that your walls are well insulated so that your birds are going to be protected. The blue board, a lot of people like to insulate with that. Yeah, your birds are going to peck at it, but it's not going to be harmful. You can use it for insulation. You can use straw to build a barrier on the north side of your coop to help insulate it. You can build where you have an Arctic entry, and then go inside to the coop to help with keeping the coop warm. Just want to definitely make sure you provide consistent temperatures for your birds throughout the day. Lighting, you want to avoid fluorescents because they're a sharper wavelength. And a lot of people will use like Christmas lights, and they work great, especially the red ones, because the red lights have a shorter wavelength and they're not as hard on a chicken's eyes as a white one. These new light bulbs, the LED lights, sometimes they're a lot harsher because they're a lot brighter onto the bird's eyes. They're great for your pocketbook, but they do provide a harsher wavelength on the birds. So if you're going to consider LEDs, consider like one of the warmer lights, or even they provide colored ones so you can get red lights. Another thing is a lot of people confuse the heating light bulbs as light. The Durvet light bulbs that we sell over the retail stores provide heat waves, not light waves. So that is not a substitute for daylight. So it's just to keep your coop warm at nighttime, not going to provide help extend the 14 to 17 hours of daytime. So don't confuse those heat light bulbs for adding light to your day. You could use a 35 watt light bulb to provide some extended light in your coop for your birds. But just remember, you want to maintain minimum, like that sweet spot's about 16 hours per day for your birds. Frostbite for prevention. Once again, reduce your indoor humidity, making sure it's well ventilated, draft free. Make sure you're turning over wet litter. Using perches that this one recommends 2x2s or 1x4s, not the dowel rods. In this picture on this slide, you will see the comb, all that black is frostbite. Your combs and wattles, they'll start to look pale. Don't rub it because it'll cause a lot of pain. It doesn't help blood flow back into those areas like humans do with their hands when we rub them. Once they, they start going white and start getting some frostbite. Rubbing them doesn't get the blood flowing back into them. They're red, they're hot, they're swollen. It's very painful. Your birds can stop eating. You can, a lot of times, if you don't want to pay to have the comb or wattle surgically removed, the best answer is to cull the bird from your flock. We recommend you can rub the comb and wattle down with Vaseline. I've had some people in classes in the past say that there is some moisture in Vaseline, so that does make them more susceptible to getting frostbite. So there's other options like petroleum jelly that doesn't contain water that you can rub on them. But if they have the big tall combs and wattles, you want to put something on those, or just make sure that they are put up in subarctic temperatures. So getting into some chicken behavior. Why are your hens losing feathers? More likely they're molting. Birds molt 1 to 2 times per year. A lot of times it's spring and autumn when they start going through their molt. It's a very stressful time during for your birds when they're going through molting. You'll see a reduce in egg production. Molting is just basically when they replace their old feathers with new feathers. So it's very painful. And, I've had customers tell me that, while they're molting, they increase their protein. So they'll, even in the spring, summertime, they'll increase their feed from the 16% layer pellets to the 20% layer pellets. And their birds will continue to lay eggs. It just puts a lot of stress on your birds. So you can make the choice of either making them continue to lay, or if you want to give them some time to get through that molt, it could take up to 2 months for a bird to go through molting. How long do chickens live? Average chicken life is 6 to 8 years, but they can live longer, 10 to 15 years. One thing to remember with chickens is they are predetermined with how many eggs they're going to lay. It's already in their system. So once they're done laying eggs, about 7, 8 years of age, they're not going to lay anymore. They're not miraculously going to start laying more later down the road. So you need to have an exit strategy. Do you have a friend or someone who is going to take these birds as a pet? Are you going to keep them as a pet? Or is it just time that they meet the stock pots and they become chicken stew? It's all up to you. So just make sure you have an exit plan, exit strategy, and you know what it is. Include your kids in it because they get attached to these birds as well. Cannibalism in the flock. They love to peck on each other. Bored bird is a bad bird. Cannibalism can be caused by poor nutrition. They don't have enough room for the amount of birds you have. It's too hot. The harsh, bright lights, or they're just bored. So just, make sure you're feeding adequate feed and enough. Better ventilation, less light. Use the red lights because they're not as harsh wavelengths. And provide some enrichments. Put some flock blocks out there. Put them a swing out there. There's cages where you can put suet cakes where they can peck at them. Or there's little balls that you can put treats in, or just throw some worms out there. When one chicken finds a worm, they all like to fight over it and see who can capture the worm, and they'll run all over the coop to keep that worm to themselves. So provide some enrichment. A happy bird is one that's not bored. So why do chickens eat their eggs? A lot of times it's an accident. They're in their nest, they're laying an egg, there's not enough nesting material in their nesting box, and when the egg drops, it cracks when it hits the floor of the nesting box, and it breaks open, and they're like, oh, what's this? Everyone loves eggs, so why wouldn't chickens love eggs? It could also be thin shells. You're not getting enough calcium. Once it does start, it's hard to stop a bird from breaking eggs and eating them. So gather eggs frequently, add adequate calcium. If you do see thin eggshells, more than likely you have a avid layer in your flock and she's giving you one egg every single day and she needs some more calcium. Add more nesting material to the box, regardless if you're using shavings or straw or hemp bedding. Just put some more in there. You could put fake eggs. You can paint a rock white. You can put a golf ball in there after you've gathered eggs and let them peck at them. Once they learn that they can't break it, a lot of times it'll stop. If you rarely have one bird that just doesn't learn that she can't just stop, she has to have that egg, you might have to cull the bird from your flock, or she might just need to find a new home. It's up to you on what you do with that. Why do all my chickens lay in one box? Is there a dead mouse in the other one? I would go check it. A lot of times it might not be as clean. It's got a dead bird, or not dead bird, but a dead mouse in it. Doesn't have as much nesting material in it. So make sure you're providing enough nesting boxes, 1 to 2 boxes for every 4 hens. Clean it, put a fake egg in there to encourage your broody hens to go in there and lay on it. Just make sure it's good and clean and that there's not a dead mouse in there. So why won't my hens lay? Are you providing supplemental light, especially in Alaska? Because we're heading into winter, we're going to start losing daylight. So make sure you're providing 14 to 17 hours of daylight a day for your birds. Optimal, your sweet spot's about 16 hours. So if you're not getting between 14 to 17 hours a day, you need to jumpstart. Add 2 hours and then increase at 15 minutes. 15 minutes every week until you're in that 14 to 17 hour window. But like I said, 16 hours is that sweet spot for you. And egg production does start to decline around 3 to 4 years of age, depending on the breed of the bird. But by 6, 8 years of age, they should be done laying for you. So once again, have an exit strategy for those birds. So some references, Stories Guide to Raising Chickens. We sell, we have one on chickens and one on poultry. I think the one we have in stock right now is on poultry. There are a bunch of 4-H guides to raising chickens. Bunch of videos. The U.S. Cooperative Extension Offices up in Fairbanks does a lot of pamphlets, and they have some DVDs that you can rent and watch. On the main thing with websites are we like to use educational ones, but we'll also use the Backyard Chicken people. Just be careful. There's a lot of groups on Facebook that they offer a lot of advice. If it doesn't sound like it's accurate, might take it with a grain of salt and think about it, do some research on it. A lot of people offer advice. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If you're having bear problems with them being predators with your bears, there's Alaska Department of Fish and Game has a great link on using electric fences as bear deterrents. There's newspaper articles. I'm a big fan. Like I said, I'm from Kentucky. If I'm doing research on anything, I normally go to the University of Kentucky because we have big cooperative research station there. So that's where I tend to go to. But if you need questions, you can always come down to the mill. I'm there Monday through Friday, but we have very knowledgeable staff on both sides of the street, on the wholesale department or in the retail store, that you can come and ask questions if you need anything. At this time, is there any questions from you guys?
Well, it looks like you covered everything, Christy, because I don't see any questions coming through.
All right. If you come up with some questions later on, don't hesitate to call or come on down and visit us at the mill. We'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction. We have we're getting ready to stock with our winter supplies, pull all those out and get the store stocked. It's in this switch over point right now. So definitely come on down if you have questions.
We did record this class, so we'll be posting it on our YouTube channel. So if you guys need a reference in it at any point, it'll be on there. And then we'll also have it on our website under our Learning Center as well.
Thank you all for coming out today.
Thank you.
Thank you.